Good day and welcome to Rocket, conversations that'll take you places with Chief. I'm your host, Daniel Robus, and today we are joined by Peter Alkema, who is digital transformation at one of the major banks and course creator for Udemy and a friend. I'm privileged to say. The world has changed dramatically over the past few years, and this has been accelerated due to a global event being locked down. Every aspect of our lives has been affected, many in a negative way, but some in an astoundingly good way. One of these is how we work and how we view our days. Peter, an IT guru, a PhD in engineering, an author, thought leader, a father, a husband, a course creator, content creator on Udemy and other channels, has encompassed this. And I'm not ashamed to say I learn from you every day, Pete. And I really am glad that you're here. I'm sure your time is precious, so I'm going to dive right in. Where are you right now?
Daniel, thanks. Great to be on the show, and hello to everybody watching and listening and consuming this content. I'm looking forward to the time with Daniel, my good friend, as one of the great influences in my life and someone that I also learned for. So fantastic to have this conversation. Daniel, thank you so much. I'm at our Fairlands offices, and we're getting a couple of collaborative events going, getting people back into the office and, seeing each other again, reminding ourselves how important it is to physically be together, read body language, obviously all COVID protocols observed, etc. So I'm in the groove of CodeFest, which some of the listeners and viewers may remember. Daniel, you and I collaborated on those and we ran them a few years ago. So that's my groove for today.
That's so amazing. You've got a full-time, big transformational role that you play at the bank. And then you've got an online life, which is just taking a momentum of its own. How do you balance both of these and be a husband and father at the same time?
Thanks, Daniel. I probably don't sleep as much as I should, which is not the right thing to do. And I certainly don't advise that to anybody. You could look to some of the exponential leaders and they have very diverging views on, whether you should sacrifice sleep to get ahead or whether good sleep patterns actually contributes to success. So I've often had to sacrifice sleep to make up for, the sort of pace of delivery that I try and achieve in my life. But yes, Daniel, as you said, my day job is digital transformation. And then my night job, I guess, is, courses and content creation. And then mornings, evenings, weekends is family. And I guess, if you could sort of time box a little bit like that, it is a lot easier that we're all very accessible can work very much more remotely and in very much more hybrid fashions. But I guess we have to maintain, some of those boundaries, in our lives that were a lot more easier when it was physically distributed pre the pandemic. So there's a little bit of that discipline. And I think with kids, you've got to be also setting a right example around device and connectedness and being able to put the device down and step away and not always be on call, within minutes or seconds for anybody that needs you. But I'm also still learning and failing on all of those topics every day, Daniel. But to answer your question, I think, each day I'm fairly clear on what my priority tasks are. And I try and eat frogs for breakfast, so hit that hardest, toughest, most important task as early as possible in the day. And then the rest of it is all a bonus.
Are you using technology to help you find the path through the chaos, or is it back to basics and the manual steps of a to-do list at your level?
No, Daniel. So I have a physical notebook and I've blogged on that. In the past, I like to write things down. I think there's a tactile activity of writing that's, still taught in school, surprisingly enough. And it's still important for kids to know how to write. And there's a reason for that. And then it'll be a myriad of, sources of multiple email addresses, just like you, multiple other apps and meeting platforms that one will have to monitor and, be available in and check regularly for, information that you have to take into your day and respond to and act on, etc. But I think, my good old fashioned spiral bound notebook and ballpoint pen is the core of how I manage my day.
I just laugh because I know it, and I always know there's pain coming out of it when you bring it up and I'm involved, because there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Pete, it talks to me about the difference between being a consumer of content and a creator. what inspired you to get involved in writing blogs and books and always putting stuff out? And then where can we read and easily access some of your content that's out there?
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. So, I had a gap in my life a number of years ago, and I had been doing a lot of woodworking, and I approached a publisher to see if I could convert some of those projects into a book, and they said yes. And I think my content creation journey really started then, and I learned about marketing and promotion and building email lists and audiences, etc., through that process. And out of that came my Leadership Insights blog. Obviously getting the physical hardback and softback woodworking book out there, taught me a lot about those topics. And then only recently have I actually sort of, gone back into that world with my sort of online courses. And really the key for me, I think, is the chance and the opportunity that we have to put content out there that creates digital assets, that, creates a form of recurring passive income. And in the absence of which we're at the mercy of the bad content, the bad actors, the clickbaits, all of those things that are going to suck in that vacuum, which, as you say, makes us, as consumers, a little bit distrustful of the internet. And something that I spoke about at a parents' evening that Resha House asked me to come in and talk about digital citizenship for their kids. And this is a point that I made quite strongly, is that what is the alternative to kids obviously being over dependent on their devices and continually scrolling and consuming? And, we obviously spoke about boundaries like we have just now. But the other point I meant was to start getting kids to become producers of content, creators of content, and to put good content out in the internet. And as you know, the internet is the sum total of all the content that's out there that's ever been created. So we have that opportunity, as I say, to put good content out there, to set a good example of what that content should look like, and then to, I think, influence the internet for good, and that in a way that it serves all of us, and potentially creates a form of income if you can monetize some of that content. And that for me has also been a learning journey of how much you can or cannot, and what works or doesn't, etc.
So it's almost our duty to put content out there and to teach as we go and make informed updates. Informed, I use in parenthesis, because there's a lot of people that put uninformed information out there. How do you find good content? What's your secret to getting good content that you can give to us?
So I guess the bulk of it at the moment is my online courses. Okay. And, through Udemy as the sort of online learning platform that I'm very active on, I'm able to look at data that they've got, which shows patterns of demand for different topics. And then, based on that demand, I can determine whether I can teach on it or whether I partner with another instructor. And utilizing that data, I can then see what the demand is by students that are actually looking for those topics and those courses on Udemy. And I think it is going to be fairly platform specific, depending on whatever content you're creating and what you're trying to achieve with that content. I think we're all tired of clickbait and spam. Yeah. And I'm not a natural, salesperson. I'm not nearly in your league, Daniel. Lots to learn from you there. Yeah. But ultimately, with an online course, if you are helping somebody with transformation rather than information, you're taking them from where they are to achieve some sort of goal or new status of being in the future. As you say, you almost have a duty to help them with that process. And look, I'd always been doing that in my role as a career professional and in mentoring and coaching and synchronous or live training. Yes. But the opportunity to create digital versions of that content and digitize my experience and skills increases the scale and the reach of that content to a greater and wider audience, which, as you say, COVID has accelerated. Many companies have been on journeys of digital transformation. So we've all seen that happening, and that's just put that into high gear. Yeah. And so for me, combining the ability to monetize my skills and experience, have an impact on people's lives, and continue to ride the wave of exponential growth in the internet, combined with, I think what is a very interesting journey that Udemy is on at the moment, for me was just a perfect combination of so many factors that I've really enjoyed and that I'm looking forward to in the coming year.
There are just so many good drop points there for us to take away. And the one is transformation rather than information. And we all have experience that can help someone else. We just haven't met them yet. and the internet seems to be this place where we can meet those people. How many courses do you have now at Udemy?
55, Daniel. And I think just to mention that Jacques Hopkins, who is one of the many fantastic podcasts that I listen to and is an online course creator in his own right, perhaps that's his phrase, I guess, and just to borrow from, all I've learned from Jacques about online course creation. Daniel, you can get any information that you want from YouTube, and a lot of it is already public available. But what an online course does as a digital asset is it creates expectations for somebody that would then enroll in that course to not only get information that they can potentially get from somewhere else, but to get that information and to be engaged in a process of learning that, as we've said, takes them from one state that they are in the moment to a future state where they've applied and they've learned by doing, and they can use those skills. They've achieved some level of transformation, or they've solved a specific a problem in their lives. And that's an asset that has recurring value for people that engage in it, that need it, and for the person that has created it.
Pete, you're a legend. That is
Thanks,
amazing. 55 courses that are 55 times you being sold every day out there. And we both talk to young people quite often, and I talk about the pipeline versus the bucket of money. And you've just put it down. You're just living that life. That is amazing. In your online life, who's your mentor, industry role model? Who's the go-to person?
Thanks, Daniel. So I mentioned Jacques Hopkins, but interestingly, not him. The guy
Jacques Hopkins. Don't go to Jacques. He's not him.
In fact, let me explain why. In fact, to be honest with you, Daniel, I just sent him a physical copy of my woodworking book, and I wrote and signed in the big front of it to say thanks to him for the inspiration that he's been. But I'll explain the reason just now. The guy, my go-to guy that I'm modeling myself on, is a chap called Phil Ebener, who's got 164 courses on Udemy. And there's really two extremes that you can look at in online course and content creation in general, I think. You can either go what's called the sort of high ticket premium content creation model, where you need then a lower volume of people to consume that, which you will have then a margin and a cost of acquisition of those customers, and then make some profit out of that. And it's a business model that you can make work.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about just briefly the pros and cons for each of those. But Phil Ebener is, and that's Jacques Hopkins. He's in he's got one or two courses, and you'll pay a premium for them. But he only needs a smaller number of customers. Phil Ebener with 164 courses, those are low ticket, heavily discounted on Udemy as a very different platform from self-hosting it like Jacques does, where he's got like 2 million students, I think now, and doesn't need to make as high a margin for each of those courses. And it comes down to one simple question, is what do you enjoy doing? What gives you fulfillment? When you sit down with that limited time that you've carved out between work, life, and everything else, if you enjoy figuring out sales processes and funnels and figuring out AdWords and paid advertising, then go for the premium content, because your time will be spent building funnels, perfecting your email marketing, driving many times paid traffic to that high ticket course or content. And you can afford a cost of acquisition because you're getting more from the price of that course. But in the low ticket game, you're going to be spending a lot more time creating content, and you're going to attract organic traffic. So people will be searching for content. And because you've just got more content out there, you're going to show up in more searches. You're going to attract more content because of what people simply see through their own organic searching for those topics. And like I said previously, Udemy also very much just a big search engine with existing students already searching for those topics. And if you can rank highly, with your courses and the content that you've created, then even if the price of that content is a lot lower than the premium business model, you're going to attract more customers. And even though you make a low margin, it's still a business model that you can make. So Phil Ebener is in that camp. And there is a fantastic podcast interview between the two of them. You can put a link to that in the description. And it's almost a masterclass in comparing those two tracks.
I had a question of the biggest challenge facing us to unlock the online industry as a content creator, but you've just answered it. You have to understand what you enjoy, because then it flows from you. And I think if I can just speak on your behalf, you just keep coming up with ideas on how we can blend together and what's going to teach people, because you enjoy it. It's a passion of yours to share that information. Where do you self-educate? How do you keep ahead of the curve?
Podcasts, Daniel. So I love podcasts.
Give me a top
just
5.
That listening medium. Online course show, online course masters. There's a couple others, American Life, and one or two off the top of my head, and we can add them into the description. But obviously you can see in the theme there, the bulk of it is online course creation. There's another one called Online Course Masters.
Wow.
I've self-educated around the course creation process, and that's paying off massive dividends for myself. So good question. You have to, and you also have to cut through the noise and the, as you say, low quality content, and really get to the heart of, what you need to do, and have that explained to you by people that you can trust and who will help you then, on that journey, and then model yourself according to them and how they work and what they enjoy doing, and pick the people, and the way they work according to how, you want to live your life and make a similar impact in your own niche, I suppose.
I mean, I don't want to be a fanboy, but you were very successful in the banking industry. You've been successful in what you have been doing, and you are part of a digital transformation team. Are you bringing any of your outside life into that transformation, or are the two very separate and never the twain shall meet?
No, it's very synergistic there. And as you know, with a busy life and a big family, there's a lot of sort of coordination that one has to do, like many people. And I simply do that coordination at a larger scale in my role in helping lead digital transformation at a large bank. It's moving parts, it's interdependencies, it's critical path planning, it's understanding what is possible within constraints and expectations. Obviously leveraging technology and, carving out the opportunity for people to innovate with that technology to solve real business problems, re-emphasize the role of the customer in rethinking design of products and services, all of those good things that I think people read about that digital transformation is in terms of a lot of the hype. But there's an execution of that. There's a delivery reality of that. There's a difference between, and a lot of people that speak to me and say, I want to get in courses, I want to do this and everything, take them through the process, but then where's the action? Where's the follow-up? Where's the next steps? Where's the content? So there is a lot of similarity in it. And then in terms of functional content, Darren, absolutely. Daniel, absolutely. A lot of sort of communication and leadership and planning and beating procrastination, and project management, program management, agile, all of those things, whether it's the PhD that I did in my own personal capacity that I've used the findings and the results of to improve the way that I can coach and help lead and facilitate agile ways of working at work. The synergies are fantastic, and the culture and my employer are very supportive in terms of the benefits that they get and the synergies that are available between myself and my organization and my colleagues.
But you cheated though. I mean, you're an engineer, so you understand process and you understand focus and the value behind it. So, all of that noise is actually you cheated, but it's working for you. And that's, I mean, it didn't just happen for you, this online life in synergy with your wife and all of this. You must have hit your head a couple of times. What was harder than you thought about running an online business like this, a content-rich business?
I think still self-doubt. There's still a publish button, whether it's on a blog or a book or a course. And as much as I coach people to hit that publish button and be comfortable with a minimum viable, good enough version of what they want to achieve, and perfection is the enemy of greatness, I still find that hard in my own life. And in my courses and blogs to know what that happy medium is. And I think, Daniel, the important point is the experimental nature that you've got to take with content creation. and understanding, how to monetize and leverage the internet.
Okay.
And a lot of it comes from the very limited understanding or correlation between the amount of effort that you put into something and the results that you get from it. And, because I've got a wide range of courses now, I've got a lot of rich data that I can look at, and I can see that courses that I put a lot of time and effort into and I thought would really do well just failed. And 80, it's a simple Pareto rule. 20% of my courses, leads to 80% of my success. And some of those very successful courses, I feel I didn't put, that level of effort in to strive for perfection, etc. And so all of that data and that progress and that continuous improvement helps to achieve that balance, not as a calculated way of taking steps, but more of an intuitive sort of approach to knowing when it's good enough, when to hold back, pause, analyze, delay. You don't have to publish now. You can publish in the morning, check something. But is the difference that you're going to achieve because of delaying something going to have a measurable difference, in the results of that? That's something that you only build up, I think, by doing something, learning by doing something.
So get going, then get good, rather than waiting till you have a finished product. And that's Tony Cross, a friend of mine, says that. Get going, then get good. The fact that you can see through this, do you ever get tempted to, brush over and rush through the things? Or is each one of your courses a bit of a baby for you, or you beyond that now? It's like, I need to get it out. We're going to partner here. They can get it. Where are you on the passion scale?
So it's interesting, Daniel, putting out a physical book. Once that's gone to the printers and they printed 10,000 copies of my woodworking book, and in actual fact, we sold out all of them, which was fantastic. Once that's gone to the printers, it is a finished product. I cannot edit my physical hardback woodworking book. It is already on the shelves in exclusive books. But an online course is a digital asset that can constantly be updated and changed and improved. And in fact, the social proof that you get and the feedback from students means that you must take that into account and continually add lessons or delete lessons or add resources, etc. So to answer your question, it comes from the degree of flexibility of whatever content you've created. Certainly from a personal branding and an employer association perspective, there's a degree of caution, 100%, that must always be in place. But on a given topic for a certain course, I'm certainly going to have a greater bias for action. And that will certainly look a little bit rushed to a lot of people. And I certainly acknowledge that. And I have to, counter for that. But I will say, Daniel, very confidently that looking back on where I've had success in my life, I have never regretted the action that I took, and jumping in or diving in and trusting the people and the colleagues and the process and my understanding of something, therefore not prohibiting, that sort of bias for action. And with a digital asset like an online course, you can go and update it and fix it afterwards and change things as well. Not to say you must put out rubbish and just generate content for the sake of it. And that's the power of a platform-enabled ecosystem like Udemy or many other similar business models. The social proof of your digital assets and whatever form of content you're creating will start to catch up with you if you are shoveling stuff out the door just for the sake of it and creating low-quality content. There are people that are rating and reviewing your courses, and that will show up in the rankings and the written feedback that you get on your courses. And, you can then calibrate the speed and the balance between perfection and action based on that social proof. And I could look again at data over the last 18 months, and I could see periods where I was rushing and my quality wasn't that great and my instructor profile rating has gone down. And when I put a little bit more time and effort into my production and my editing and my quality, I can see that rating has gone up, and it works. Whether it's Amazon or Uber or YouTube, those ecosystem models of rankings and social proof always drives the quality content and the quality driver in Uber, the quality YouTube clip, the quality movie. It's a natural selection process, that you have to kind of also be very much aware of as you strike that balance for yourself.
That's fascinating. And I think you've mentioned data maybe 20 times. We have to look back and review. And I love that because not enough of us review where we have come from. And we expect to change the trajectory of our lives just by moving forward. But we never take the time to look back and see what we can improve. What should we start, stop, or continue? But I know that's ingrained into your person. I'm going to ask you a question for our audience. We're talking to 3 different people now. You're getting this youngster that's just coming into the work environment. You're getting this person who's mid-career, and then you're getting to the one that's at the end of their career. How would you suggest they dived into this burgeoning world, this massive opportunity of being online and creating an online someone, persona, or presence, or body, or work? How would you talk to those 3 different people?
I think, Daniel, the first most important general principle is always to manage expectations. So therefore, for the younger person that is perhaps attempting to teach or create content for perhaps a peer group or a smaller audience that will be younger than them, and recognizing that at the earlier stage of their career, that audience is going to be slightly smaller. As long as they're managing expectations around what it says on the tin about the content or the value that they're going to create, and when the person opens the box, do they get that? So for an earlier stage person creating a course, they cannot claim 20 years of experience in a certain industry on the basis of which they're training you then how to climb the corporate ladder, for example. So, I certainly believe that anybody has something to teach. I've helped my kids get set up with rigs and cameras. My daughter's very good at cooking in the kitchen, and I'll help set, cameras and lights up so that she can record the process of cooking, and get those video lessons and that content and those resources ready so that when she reaches the age, I think, of for Skillshare as a creative online course platform, she's got some courses ready that she can put on there. So Daniel, for the earlier stage person or a younger person, as my kids even are helping their peer group, if they could do well in a certain subject, to write a simple article or help them with an online quiz, for example, to look around them, in their peripheral vision and see where they can add value to those people. And then I guess the middle stage, that's an important stage once you start getting that economic independence, and you can start then, harnessing the time value of money and start creating both economic assets in whatever, wealth management process you want to follow, but then also digital assets that are going to, again, create a recurring income model for you that you can monetize over a lot longer period of your life than somebody at a later stage. And so that middle stage person that you mentioned, my advice would be so strongly to create digital assets that you can monetize that will create recurring passive income for yourself, not only now, but ongoing into the future, providing you create what's called evergreen content. So, some topics, if you're teaching on a certain version of certain type of software, you're going to have to keep upgrading that as new versions are released. But like Jacques Hopkins, who teaches piano, for example, that's a fantastic evergreen topic. And because he's got a premium course, he doesn't have to upgrade or update that very much. It's a premium course. He drives paid traffic to it, and it lasts for 10, 15 years at a time. And other niches are going to require lots more updating and upgrading, which means that evergreen nature of it is a little less to capitalize on. So at that middle stage, think about what's going to have the greatest tenure, the greatest lifetime of value for yourself. And then, Daniel, the older, sort of later stage, I don't know, do we put you and I in that category? I'm not sure.
I think we've arrived there. Yeah. Towards the end of our lives, yes.
Well, look, Daniel, I mean, and when I introduce a course, I'm teaching on communication, for example, one of my best-selling courses, and I can say, I've been in the workplace 25 years, and this is what I've learned about communication. That's a compelling introduction to a course. Yeah. And I can be a little bit ambitious with creating expectations of what I say on the tin, and I must deliver that with the right quality of content. But I've got a higher chance of doing that because of that actual experience, and because now I can package that. If you're willing to take the time and put the effort into packaging it, producing it, and putting it out there, and, properly thinking through how you got to where you are and helping somebody else from that perspective get to that same level. And in all my courses, I include what I call a whiteboard lesson, where I physically stand up. So no slides, no fancy editing and typing and production. I've built a whiteboard at home in my studio, and I go up there, and very often I draw a line from the bottom left to the top right. And there's some sort of transformational journey that a person is going through. And I commit to saying, you're over here, let's work together to get over here. If you need to learn communication, if you need to learn digital transformation, if you need to learn leadership, whatever it is, there's going to be a stage of migration. And there's a higher degree of trust if you can see that that person is at that higher level and they're reaching back down to help you get back up there. So Daniel, in each of those three camps, I think there are still real opportunities, but there's slightly different approaches to how you would create any form of content really that you want to then derive some value from.
Peter, that's amazing. And we could carry on for a very long time. I don't want to do that to you. So I'm going to hit you with a couple more questions and then let you go to your real job, this is almost a mentoring session. That's so good. Let's have a beer.
It's my lunchtime. It's my lunch break.
It's a lunch break. What do you wish your younger Peter knew about your current world? And what would you have done differently if you had to walk the journey again?
Look, Daniel, I think for any of us 20 years ago, it would have been difficult to predict the explosion of the internet and the opportunities that it's given us all, but certainly just the awareness of how those possibilities will arise and that the disruptive nature of the world is going to continue. And that we must be aware of and open to taking advantage of those changes. Look, a lot of people have lost a lot of money and a lot of people have made a lot of money on crypto, for example. So that's something that I've only ever written about or researched. It's not something that I in my own life would sort of want to get into as a form of content creation or monetization. So I think you have to also be selective and again, base it on what you enjoy doing. But certainly, Daniel, the other thing to answer your question would be, and maybe it's not a bad thing that there wasn't this sort of Facebook and social media around when we were at school and varsity. So there's a form of content creation that perhaps was good that we didn't have at that time. But future monetization of digital content also requires that it is captured at a certain point in time. So like the example of my daughter, if you're cooking a meal or in my woodworking content, there's certain stages of that process. I can't take a photograph of the finished product, and then rely on explaining what the other stages look like. So when I'm building something in my workshop, I have to pause, take the photograph, record the content, for the stage of that project that it was in. And that's very much like life, So at an early age, are you documenting, archiving, recording, and creating an easily accessible taxonomy for all possible content that you may ever monetize in the future? So that's something that, perhaps for people earlier on in their journey or even if we cannot anticipate what the future, changes will provide for us in terms of opportunities, I still believe that's a good principle that you should stick to. And certainly something with my kids, I've said, look, put that content there. You don't know how you're going to use it or monetize in the future, but create it. You can never go back and recreate it afterwards. You can to a certain degree, but that would be a key advice, that I'd give younger people.
I love that. That's so solid. You should go back into teaching. Second last question. What's the one question you wished I'd asked you in this 40-minute slot?
Yeah, I think we did touch it, but, Daniel, again, that correlation between effort and success on the internet, and if you're perpetually second guessing yourself and analyzing something before you put good enough content out there, you're not going to build up enough of a set of data or enough of a trend analysis that you can then use to calibrate what type of content you should be creating, what niche you should be creating that content in, and how you should be getting it out there and building an audience around it. And as I say, that correlation for me has been quite surprising. So almost to say that there almost isn't a correlation, and the only way that you can start understanding what will work for you in the future is to have started get going, keep going, and then learn from that. Every day, every piece of content that you're creating will be based on your improved understanding of what has or hasn't worked in the past.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Your prediction for 2022 as our summary, where do you see 2022 going, and what's it got in store?
Daniel, I think quite a few false starts on the workplace again. And, I think in 2020, we all thought, it's a blip on the radar and we'll get people back into the office. And certainly in my role, we rely heavily on that collaborative, agile sort of ways of working. There are many job functions that I think are very conducive to remote working, and perhaps that's been a huge advantage for both those roles. And employers have got a lot more efficiency, and those people in those teams have been able to work a lot smarter. So I think a lot more false starts as we ride the peaks and troughs of the ongoing pandemic around the world, and it's something that we must continue to take very seriously. But hopefully also some green shoots of people having gone through lots of tragedy and disruption in businesses and personal lives, perhaps looking to 2022 with a little bit of optimism, and perhaps some of that can be realized. I think still globally and geopolitically, lots of upheaval, and we're seeing all of that in the news. So lots of extremist sort of politics and debates that are going to continue raging. But ultimately, again, whether it's, 70 years ago in the Second World War, people were able to get on with their lives, put their head down, build a family, build an income, create a legacy. I think that's always something that we must keep in our minds. Because, future generations will be grateful for that. I think of St. Stithians, where I'm very involved. 1951, they bought a plot of land and built a few classrooms, and 70 years later, it's a massive educational institution with a huge footprint, with a huge impact, on society. And so the vision of those founders, for us in 2022 is something that we must learn from and apply. And what is it that in 70 years, 1,000, 10,000 people will say, I'm so glad Daniel did this or did that. And again, back to that lack of correlation between effort and success, you often don't know exactly what will be the end result of what you do. I think the most important thing for me, again, and just to end off with, is to take action in 2022. Start that book, write that blog, get that online course going. And if you want help, if you'd like to co-instruct with me, people can get in touch with me, and I almost provide a bit of a done for you service. Where people can focus on the teaching of their expertise. I'll help out with the course creation. We'll share the workload. We'll have fun doing it together. But whatever it is, whatever project you've got on the back shelf that you've been wanting to get going, I think 2022 for me must be the year of getting that done now, dusting those goals off and making them a reality. Because as COVID and the pandemic has taught us, never be certain about tomorrow or the next year or anything else. So Daniel, great chatting. Sure. I think you're doing fantastic work with your podcast, and it's been a wonderful, enjoyable conversation.
Sure, Pete, you just mic drop. Life rocks interviewing people like you. Thank you very much from our side. We just want to really thank you for your time. I know how busy you are. I know how much fun you're having at the bank and online. And I look forward to seeing more of where you're going. I love reading your blog. If you want to see it at peteralkema.com/my blog. Read. Pete is a prolific writer. He also is on LinkedIn, Udemy, anywhere you want to get hold of him. Take him up on his offer if you want to put a course together. From our side at Rocket, conversations that take you places. Maybe we can move someone into financial freedom by putting them in touch with you, Pete. From our side, thank you. Have an awesome day and goodbye.